To talk about, well, actually, we're showing live the roads in Knoxville, Tennessee are pretty ice covered. You can see here they're very slick. We'll show you right here. Knoxville roads are passable, but they're pretty slick. So, showing the roads here in Knoxville, Tennessee, and also we're going to break down the ice shooting incident. So you can see we're out on the road, and we're going to go into our office here and show you an update on the Minnesota ice shooting. Another shooting occurred just 2 days ago on Saturday morning. We're going to break down that from an expert point of view and tell you what you need to know. A lot of false propaganda out and misidentifying the situation with false stuff, people going on emotion because somebody was killed. And I told y'all, so I warned y'all, and y'all know that dealing with police can be life or death circumstances. Take it seriously. So I wish that man in Minnesota had listened to my video, and then he would have known. So we're going to cover some of the stuff about dealing with police and what you need to know. And I'm on law enforcement side. Some of them act wrongly, that's true, but for the most part, I think they're out for the public safety. There's a few bad apples, people that want to kill you, and there's people in law enforcement that want to kill, but they want to do it justifiably, and maybe that's their calling, I don't know. Some people can't be made safe any other way. They have to eliminate the threat. So this is the Charles Van Morgan Show. Got a lot to cover for you today, covering the roads right now. You can see they're ice covered and snow covered and very slick if you're out on the road today. And it's about 20 degrees out here. So we're on our way to the office. I'm going to go down to the bridge today. So welcome. We're going to break down the Minnesota shooting also and tell you my take on it with some pictures and some evidence and some expert interpretation. I've had my boots on the ground. I know what I'm talking about. I've been in life and death situations, and I know what the news media is trying to sell you, and I know the truth of the circumstance and what actually took place, and I believe it was a justified shooting. And if you're going to confront police, you're going to have that kind of stuff happen. So come on board. Here's the roads. Charles Van Morgan live here in Knoxville, Tennessee. And we're going to go in our little office here and talk to you about the Minnesota police shooting from a expert perspective. I have one. And break it down and tell you what the news is not telling you, that they're lying to you, telling you a story that's absolutely not true, that's bogus and false, trying to sell a false narrative, propaganda. And I told y'all just in my last video on Friday, when you're dealing with police, it's a life or death situation. And you need to be very careful. Don't take it lightly. It's not a joke. It's not a game. If you treat it like that, then you might end up 6 foot underground, just like the man in Minnesota is. And we're going to break that down. So I warned y'all, it's life or death. This is Charles Van Morgan Show, live in the morning, and the roads are very slick. So if you get out on the road, be careful. We're going to go in our office here and break down the video, some of the stuff you've seen, some of the lies have been told. Some of the stuff you've seen, some of the lies have been told, and break it down from an expert perspective. And I have an expert perspective. I've had my boots on the ground and I know what I'm talking about. We're going to cover some statistics about law enforcement. And when you're dealing with them, you better be careful. They can kill you legally. It's not a joke or a game, and I warned y'all. My last video was how to avoid being killed by law enforcement. And that's a very legitimate concern that you need to watch out for. So good morning, the Charles Van Morgan Show. And we're gonna show you all how to stay alive and look at the video. And let's get this screen straightened up here. Turn off the blue screen. There we go. So we're gonna talk about the Minnesota shooting and what you can do to stay 6 foot above ground. So welcome in our office. And here's a picture of the now deceased suspect standing in the middle of the road in Minnesota. So he's already, I know it's a minor offense, but he's already breaking the law. You can't stand in the middle of the road, and he's directed traffic. Now, Minnesota has a Minnesota statute 16921. If there are sidewalks provided and accessible, usable, it is unlawful to walk along upon the adjacent roadway in the street next to the sidewalk. So he's in the road. So he's not a completely innocent, unlaw breaking suspect. He's literally violating the laws of the state of Minnesota. Now, you can protest 100%. I agree with protesting. That is a good thing to do. If you object to something the government is doing and you want to go hold up a sign on the sidewalk peacefully, then that is your right, every bit your right to do that. Now, I suggest the more important than protest is going to the voting booths and voting and getting someone in office who agrees with your policy that you agree should be changed in your favor. Now, there are instances where protesting does bring attention to an issue and can warn politicians that if they don't go along with the program, then they'll be voted out of office. But when you protest, which is very important, and I made that video Friday warning y'all, dealings with police are serious business. It's not a game. You can end up dead. They're trained to kill. They go out to firing range and they practice hitting a target and kill. They don't call it training to kill somebody. They call it training to stop the threat, the verbiage, but it's the same. They're training to kill you. The ultimate purpose should be to protect the public. And they have a right to defend their lives. And they have a right to perform their duties. And if you're going to protest, that's fine. You better do it legally. And if you confront police, you're asking to possibly, for a mistake, maybe happen for you to get killed. I'm just telling you the truth. It ain't pretty. This is Charles Van Morgan, unbridled news. This is the real truth. Boots on the ground. And I'll re-mention, as I showed earlier, if you watched the front of the video, if you're coming out in Knoxville, Tennessee, the roads are very treacherous. There's snow and ice covered. So if you're coming out on Knoxville, Tennessee, if you're just joining me, watch out for the roads. I showed you all, I was out there, my hands are still cold. And now we're talking about the Minnesota shooting. The temperature is about 20 degrees out there. So it is very cold. Temperature is very treacherous. If you got to get out, be very careful, slow down, and take precautions. Maybe bring a blanket or something with you in case you get stranded somewhere. And take some gloves if you have some. So the Minnesota shooting, from an expert perspective, I have a doctorate of jurisprudence. I know the law, and things are measured according to the law, supposedly, but I know also with a Master of Arts in Sociology, and with an emphasis in criminology, that it also makes a difference how the law is applied. I mean, laws are words on a page, and how people and judges apply those laws to different people makes a huge bit of difference. And who writes these laws makes a huge bit of difference. And people in government power have written these laws in their favor. Now, right or wrong, that's just the way it is. And if you don't agree with it, then we need to vote people in office that are more pro-populist, like me. I'm more pro-populist, although I do believe in law and order. Now, I looked at that Minnesota situation. I also spent 18 years with my boots on the ground in law enforcement, and I wasn't a law enforcement officer that sat in the parking lot and watched people have crashes and get killed every day, or was a passive police officer. I was active in preventing crime on the front end. And when I seen crime take place, I did something about it. Now, I made more arrests for drunk driving than any trooper in the state for more than half a decade, taking dangerous people off the roads to protect them, to protect society, and to protect myself also. I mean, I've literally almost got hit by drunk drivers myself when I was out on the road, and I'm sure many of you have to this day. So I was very active, and it wasn't like you hear today with the THP troopers and officers all across the state making bad DUI arrests. I never made one bad DUI arrest. You can look at the records with TBI, and they won't find one where things came back negative unless it was a TBI lab where we were testing their blood based on a serious crash, where we were going to charge later if something came back in the blood because we couldn't give them sobriety tests because they were unconscious. So, but the arrests I made were completely valid. None of them came back with zero blood in their system that I know of. And I looked at every one of them. So I know what I'm talking about. And now this situation in Minnesota, I also spent 18 years with my boots on the ground in law enforcement, active, and with my sociology degree, I know how to put things in perspective. So this situation in Minnesota, the first thing that I'm going to show you is this man confronting law enforcement in the middle of the road. He's already breaking a statute of jaywalking, and he's directing traffic in the middle of the road. So he is initiating conflict, initiating conflict with law enforcement. Now that is a dangerous, very dangerous thing to do. Don't take that lightly. I mentioned that Friday. That's very serious. Now, if you want to protest, then that's fine. But when you intentionally initiate law enforcement, try to impede or do something illegal, then that's very shaky ground. You could get yourself killed, which is what happened. This does not surprise me at all. It doesn't surprise me at all. If you're going to protest, be very cautious of law enforcement. Make sure you're complying with every law. Don't jaywalk. Don't do anything illegal. Stand on the sidewalk. Make sure you're completely legal. And if you're approached by law enforcement, be very careful of how you deal with them. Don't do anything aggressive or where they could misconstrue something. Obey every order that they give you, unless they tell you you're on a bridge to jump off the bridge, of course. But go along with the program on the street every time, because if they misconstrue something, and this is serious to them, it's their life. They deal with dangerous people who try to kill them, and they're trained to go out. They go out on the firing range every year, and some of them are pretty good at it. I was a real good shot. I won awards for my shooting ability, and they practice. They don't use this terminology. I'll use it. They practice to kill people. So they're not average people that you're confronting. It's a very unfair advantage that they have if you fight them. I would suggest you absolutely do not. One thing, it's against the law. It's immoral. It's wrong. If you want to fight law enforcement, unlike this man standing in the road, that's not the way to do it. That's an agitator. He is going out in the road showing them, hey, I'm confronting you, and they are trying to arrest someone who is a very dangerous person. So they're conducting a lawful activity. And I know this is not a lot the news wants to hear, what people want to hear. I'm just telling you the way it is to provide for your safety all across the United States. You need to hear this. Provide for your safety. Like, share, comment, subscribe to the channel. Share this channel. Even if you don't agree with me, if you think that I should be gone and eliminated, and you hate police, you better listen to this, because I'm telling you the truth. There's a lot of these agitators that could end up dead. Is it worth your life? No, it's not worth your life. If you want to fight them, you do it on the road, and there's a high likelihood, very high, especially when you're doing something like this, that you're going to end up 6 foot underground. Is that worth it? I mean, he's a martyr, and it is propaganda. Somebody died and somebody did something wrong, so let's get rid of the ice, and spreads that propaganda. The same thing that Dr. Martin Luther King did when he had little children. And now, Dr. Martin Luther King didn't do anything wrong, but what he did was try to infuriate people. He was a great person in how to manipulate, truthfully, the public and show them what was going on, how wicked racism was at the time. He was a great strategist, and he had children, young teenagers, arrested to show, hey, look, they're even arresting children, and had them show African Americans and people that were protesting being sprayed down with water hoses and bit with dogs, because it's propaganda to turn people against the government. Now, that was for a good, legitimate purpose, and I agree with that. That was also very dangerous for them to do that, but the purpose was to get equal rights among minorities, and they were killing minorities, hanging them without a trial and doing all kinds of atrocities to African Americans. So that was probably, in some people's minds, well worth the fight. Something wrong against the Constitution. What is going on now is not wrong against the Constitution. They are not killing these illegal immigrants. They are rightfully arresting them and deporting dangerous ones. In this particular case, they were arresting Jose Arturo Chuna. He was a domestic assault, intentionally attempts to inflict bodily harm on another, disorderly conduct, intentionally inflict bodily harm on another. So they were trying to get this illegal alien, they were trying to get him under arrest. So they were conducting a lawful activity, trying to do something that I believe every American citizen should agree with. This person should not be free on American soil. He should be in jail for those crimes, even if he's not illegal. And since he's illegal, he should be deported, never to return, because we don't want that violence in America. He's not good for America. He should be deported. If you don't believe that, then the majority of Americans in this last election do, because they voted for a president that said that immigration was probably one of the most important issues confronting this country. So it's no surprise what he's doing now. He said he was going to do this. He's going to. He read a poem about a snake that a lady found, and it was such a pretty snake. She brought it in and took care of it, and then the snake bit her. And so he was very adamant and out front about his immigration beliefs, that it's an open border, and that was one of the most important issues. He even said at the time, more important than the economy. So it is no surprise that he is out having ICE agents arrest people all over the country. The fact that they're having problems in Minnesota has a lot to do with not ICE in Minnesota, has a lot to do with the government officials in Minnesota are promoting violence against ICE by saying that we need to get rid of them, we shouldn't have ICE here, they're invading our state. And the sovereign countries were defeated in the 1800s. The Union Army beat the Confederate. Now that was the war for states. Different states wanted to free themselves from the federal government, from the United States, and there was a war fought, the Civil War. States wanted to leave the United States, and they fought the Union. They attacked the Union Army, which is the United States Army, and the Union Army in the 1800s won that battle. It is the United States. It is the government, United States ICE, and a state doesn't have more authority than the federal government. That war's been fought. They're going to win that war. It's done. You cannot have a state and say, we're not going to obey federal laws. That's what these mayors in Minneapolis, Minnesota, and the governor, Walt, or whatever his name is trying to say, that we're going to have another confederacy in our state and do whatever we want to do. We don't have to obey the federal government. Yes, you do, and you will. And that's been fought, unless you want to have another civil war, which is what they're trying to promote, and you're going to lose that war. It's the United States of America, and ICE is enforcing United States immigration policies to protect this entire country, and they're going to be able to do that. So if you're fighting to eliminate ICE or kick them out of your state, you're fighting a losing battle. You're not going to win that, and you shouldn't win that. That's not good for the United States of America. And we should be a United States. If you don't agree with ICE, which is fine, a lot of people don't. I personally do, my opinion, I'll put it out there, unbridled news. I have a bias that is based on the fact that I've been out on the road, I've seen these people, I've read the information, and I've seen what goes on, and also just good God-given common sense. There's only so much space in this country, and only so much housing, and only so much resources. And you can't have a country without a border. We can't allow people to come over here without applying for citizenship and going through a legal process, speaking our language, abiding by our laws, us knowing who they are. You can't have a country that way. You can have Russia or whatever country come over here, walk across the border, and start an internal war, which a lot of this may be an internal war that's going on from other countries invading the United States of America. They're already here invading, and they are getting sympathizers through propaganda to go along with the program and cause America to divide. And it's not going to work. I hope it don't. So this man's in the middle of the road while these ICE agents are trying to arrest this man here. Now that's already, you can say that's wrong. He can protest, but he wasn't on the side of the road holding up a sign. He's out there confronting ICE. So as I told you on that video on Friday, a confrontation with police is dangerous if you don't initiate it. If they come to you, if you're on the sidewalk, that's dangerous. But be careful how you handle stuff. Don't reach in something. If you have a gun on you, then make sure you don't go for it. You might want to tell them that you're armed, hold your hands up, let them take the gun. Be very careful how you deal with police. They will kill you and legally kill you. And let me say this. Now, a lot of people don't understand this, but this is the law. This is real. This is what you need to know. If you're a citizen and you're confronting them, you don't have the rights that they have. Now, this is just the way the law's written. You don't have the rights they have. You need to know this. Even if they make a mistake, and a lot's been said about that video mistake and all this stuff, but even if they make a mistake, they didn't have a right, based on what we know later, they didn't have a right to kill you. They didn't have a right to shoot you. And this man was shot several times at point blank range. And even though if we come up with the ideal now that officer did not have the right to shoot him, you say, well, that's murder then. He's going to jail or get executed. No, legally, this is very important. Legally, he can't make a mistake. He can't make a mistake. Now, that's not a fatal mistake there. That's jaywalking. He's also confronting police. Could be construed a federal crime, interfering with ICE officers, obviously with intent to disrupt them in the process of doing something legal. But here's what you need to know. Even if the ICE agent makes a mistake that we later figure out, that doesn't matter if at the time that he made the decision to fire all those shots, it was reasonable for him to believe that his life was in danger, others were in danger as a result of the suspect. Even if we determine later that he did not have that reasonable belief that the person was dangerous. But at the time, knowing what he knew then, that he thought, and it was reasonable at the time, because they don't go on 20/20 hindsight. The law in Graham versus O'Connor says that it's what they know at the time, not 20/20 hindsight, not what we see on video cam later, which doesn't tell any of the whole story. Now, I know, like in my specific case, it was put out on the news that I said, don't believe that line camera, believe me. People say, well, you see a camera, you can see what happened. No, you can't. No, you can't. I know that sounds alarming. This is unbridled news. This is the truth. And it happens every day, every time a football game is played. You can see referees on the field in real live time, real live action, make a call, and then a challenge flag is thrown, and they review the video, slow it down step by step, and find out what the referee said on the sideline in real time was wrong. A lot of times it's right, sometimes it's wrong. So they correct it and change it to the actual what the video shows. But that's not what the referee seen at the time in real live action. That doesn't mean that the referee was trying to make a false call. That means that that's what he's seen in real time action, because perception reaction is limited. What a person sees in real time in real live action is not, you can't stop a frame. You can't do that. It doesn't work that way. Life is continually evolving, and you can't analyze it at the time on the scene. And the law in Graham versus O'Connor is that officers are not held to a standard of what we find out later, screenshots on a film of an incident. It's what they knew at the time. So don't believe that line camera, believe me. No, don't believe a line narrative about what the camera shows, because it doesn't show what they say it shows. It presents a narrative of what somebody wants to tell you it shows, and they screenshot something and then explain to you what that screenshot or what that camera means. And that is not, absolutely not 100% all the time. It shows you a screenshot and then the story of how they want you to see that, which is called propaganda, and that's false. For example, they're showing you a screenshot picture of a ICE agent having a gun that they claim taken off the suspect, and then the suspect is shot after the ICE agent has already disarmed him. So they're saying he was murdered, he was unarmed at the time he was shooting, and the ICE agent shouldn't have shot him, that he knew that. But that's not true. How do you know that the ICE agent knew that he was disarmed? You don't know that. And you do hear on the video someone yelling gun. And the ICE agent may have heard the gun, and officers are trained to take that seriously. And when the man's arms were not restrained, then he could have been in fear for his life and took measures to defend himself, which is probably, in my estimation, what happened. So he had every right. 20/20 hindsight doesn't matter. The screenshot later doesn't matter. It's what he knew at the time on the scene. And those videos taken from people around the scene don't show you what the officer saw and what's going through the officer's mind. Is it objectively reasonable under the circumstances? Not what the video shows, that you can slow down after the fact. And that's not the law. According to Graham versus O'Connor, it is what they knew at the time, and if a regional officer would have thought that. Minnesota Statute 169-21 Subdivision 3A, crossing between intersections. If you cross anywhere other than a marked crosswalk or unmarked crosswalk at an intersection, you must yield to all vehicles. If you're between adjacent intersections where traffic control signals are, you can't cross except in a marked crosswalk. So he wasn't in a marked crosswalk. He's in the road directing traffic, intentionally confronting ICE agents where he should not have been. So he is putting himself in harm's way, at risk of a mistake being made. And he's also armed. I mean, that is so very dangerous. I wish you'd listened to my video Friday and he would have known, don't do that. Don't confront officers especially in the performance of their duties. Don't confront them in a violent, dangerous way. They are trained to think that someone is going to kill them. They kill them. They're not out handing out roses. They're out thinking when they're in uniform, and it's stress when you put on a uniform, that someone may kill them. And that there's people out there that want to kill them. They know who they are. They're in uniform, and they'll kill them. They'll kill them from behind. There's officers sitting in a store eating, several of them, and people have savagely killed every one of them. So they're trained to be aware of that. They're trained not to go the same route every day, to be weary of ambush. They're trained to be paranoid. The first day that I went to the Law Enforcement Academy in 1990, when I was at UT Police, and if you don't believe I work for UT Police, then type in historic photographs, Charles Van Morgan. I was in a historic photograph with UT Police back in the 90s. The first day when I went to the Tennessee Law Enforcement Training Academy, they had a whole 2 days of videos where we watched officers getting shot and killed. Some of them reenactments, and showed how horrific. 2 days of that, showing us, hey, officers get killed. So it was pounded in our heads that officers get killed by people. So you literally sit there and think, if I was in my early 20s, is this what I want to do? And I decided that it was, but they literally try to scare the truth into you. And when you have an officer out on the street, and these ICE agent officers, and the public is not aware of this because it's not their profession. And officers are trained to be aware of this so that they can protect themselves and protect the public, so they don't go out like total idiots and think that everybody loves them and it's a safe world. They're trained to believe and know the fact of the matter. It is not a safe world. Absolutely not at all. They're more at risk than a lot of people if they don't wake up, because they're out confronting wrong. They don't get calls where people are getting along to congratulate people for obeying the law. They get called in their own calls where people aren't cooperating with society's norms and rules and laws. If you don't like the laws, vote to have them changed. But as they are, don't confront or be violent with police officers. So here's the intersection that occurred in Minnesota, Google Maps. And we're going to talk about that, maybe show you some video and how the news media and a lot of people that have no experience in law enforcement are telling you how to think about something and saying, there it is on the video, you can believe what I say. But how you think about what's on the video and what's on the video and what they're telling you how to think about it are two completely different things. It's called propaganda, and somebody died, so they're really living off that because people become enraged and passionate about somebody dying. But let me give you a little hint. People die every day, all day. Everybody on the planet is going to die, except for 3 people didn't die in the Bible that went straight to heaven, and people that are caught up in the rapture won't die. But everybody's going to die. It's not an unreal, unknown phenomenon. It happens. And so don't get infuriated by it. Let's see how many people got on here. We'll continue with this dialogue. If you're just joining us, we're talking about the Knoxville weather and the Minnesota shooting from an expert point of view. Let's see how many people got in here. And thank you all for coming. I appreciate your time. We got quite a few. Like, share, comment, and let's see what comments we got. Share on Republicans. Shame on Republicans. Thank you for speaking the truth. Yeah, I appreciate that. My whole family are police officers, and they all say this was legal. Yeah, that's exactly what I believe, because of the circumstance of what happened, and because the news media, just like the prior shooting in Minnesota, is trying to blow up the fact that there's a death. So they know they can use that. That's what Dr. Martin Luther King used. Little children getting arrested, trying to infuriate the public and people that don't have a lot of sense. People die in police confrontations. And I'm going to show you how dangerous it is to deal with police. And I am pro police. I'm not saying it's bad about police. Police are well trained. The number of people killed, the number of police killed is it's horrible when that killed. They're not just killing a police officer, they're killing our protectors, they're killing the thin blue line. Don't do that for the most part. So, but the number of people that police kill, and I'm not making a moral judgment, far outnumber the people that kill police. So it's an unfair battle. You're going to lose, most likely. So if you're going to lose, don't do that. Even if you think you're right, don't do that. And we are not people, I'm not, without hope. In the United States, we're not hope. We're a country based on, in God we trust. And even if police do wrong, in God we trust. We don't have a shootout on the street. We don't fight police. That's not right. That's wrong. If they do mistreat you, if you're trying to fight for your life, and that circumstances may come, then I get that. You have to try to stay alive. But if you're out confronting police and initiating contact and going after them, then you feel giddy. But let me tell you, you're likely to end up 6 foot underground. I wouldn't do that. It's not worth it. Don't do that because they're trained to kill. So in Graham versus O'Connor, the court explained that, as in other Fourth Amendment contexts, the reasonableness inquiry in an excessive force case is an objective one. The question is whether the officer's actions are objectively reasonable in light of the facts and circumstances confronting them without regard to their underlying intent or motivation. So it doesn't matter if they're mad at you. That's their underlying intent. If they want to get you, that doesn't matter. That legally, that's irrelevant. It's based on whether their actions are objectively reasonable, even if they didn't like you or they had a bad motive. Still, if they're objectively reasonable, that's just the law. Because if you went into their motives and intents all the time, that's kind of hard to figure out. So we don't even put that, that's not even on the table. The court also cautioned the reasonableness of a particular use of force must be judged from the perspective of a reasonable officer on the scene rather than with 20/20 vision of hindsight. So what we're seeing in all these videos is 20/20 hindsight. That's not, should not legally be the criteria. Now it might be, and in the public opinion and propaganda, that's exactly what they're showing you, the 20/20 hindsight, and telling you that those officers knew all this stuff at the time, and we don't know that. We can't say that. Now I'll tell you my assessment exactly what I think happened, and I think it was completely legitimate and legal. And this man put himself in a situation where he couldn't win, and he shouldn't have done that. He cost his own life confronting ICE agent, just like that other lady, and don't do that. That's not very smart. The court also cautioned the reasonableness of a particular use of force must be judged from the perspective of a reasonable officer on the scene rather than with the 20/20 vision of hindsight. The court further explained the reasonableness of a particular use of force must be judged from the perspective of a reasonable officer on the scene, not one that's watching a camera or watching a YouTube video or watching the news, Con News Network later. That's not a reasonable officer on the scene. Had I been on that scene, then I may have done the exact same thing that officer did. And the fact is, if you cannot do that as an officer, then maybe you shouldn't be doing that job because you have a duty and responsibility to protect other people. Now, knowing what I know now, I would not have done that. But at the time, I probably would have done the very same thing that ICE agent done under the circumstance at the time, given what I believe that he thought. So it's 20/20 vision of hindsight. The court further explained the reasonableness of a particular use of force must be judged from the perspective of a reasonable officer on the scene, and the calculus must embody an allowance for the fact that police officers are often forced to make split-second decisions about the amount of force necessary in a particular situation. So it is very reasonable to believe that possibly, and I can see how it would come to fruition, a gun was yelled, you can hear it on the video, the man was in the road confronting them, that he had a reasonable, objective fear at the time for his life and the lives of people around him, fired multiple shots in order to stop the threat. That's very obvious that that situation most likely played out that way. Without something more, putting my own feet in that situation, I don't think he did anything wrong. I think he acted in defense of himself. Now, knowing what we know now, would he have? No, but that doesn't matter. That's irrelevant. So all these replay of these videos is irrelevant for the most part, other than for them to see if they can inject that into what was happening at the time. And there's enough on that video to what was happening at the time that you can honestly say, as a reasonable police officer at the time, that he most likely, by every stretch of the imagination, had every right to do everything he did. The point is, don't confront police officers in that manner. Don't do that. If there may be even a mistake made, a legal mistake, because this is the point I want you to get. They can make mistakes, and it's not a crime for them to kill you, even if they make a mistake. So they can mistakenly kill you and be legally covered if it was reasonable at the time, with an officer right there for them to believe what they believed in order to take shots to end the threat and ultimately end your life. Even if they made a mistake that you can figure out later. Now, do you want to confront people that have that much leeway? And I believe that's justified. Do you want to confront people that have that much leeway? I mean, they've already shown you in Minnesota, ICE agents, that they are going to protect themselves. And all day long, every day, there's already been 3 shootings there in the past less than a month. So they're going to defend themselves. They have a right to do that, and they're going to. So how much more of a message do people up there want to get? If I were you, unless you want to be shot and killed, and there may be some more, they've got every legal right to defend themselves, to get people out of the country that aren't supposed to be here, to conduct operations legally authorized by the federal government, and states don't have a right to impede that. I've already told you the Civil War was fought, the Union won, the Confederate that wanted to succeed from the United States federal government lost a war. So we have to go along with the federal government. That's a good thing. We're the United States. It's not United States and then we got Minnesota that don't want to abide by our immigration laws. It's not going to work. You're not going to win that. You've already lost that. And for governors and these people to be saying stuff they're saying is totally horrific, in inciting violence and causing these people to put themselves in circumstances where they could be killed, and blaming it on the ICE agents that are, in the end, I believe, going to be covered by this. Because you can make a law in Minnesota if you want to enforce it on your Minnesota police officers and make it completely unreasonable, like the Chauvin case, and put them in jail all day long. You're not going to do that with federal officers. It's not going to work out that way. You don't have a right to enforce your specific state laws on federal officers. The federal government is supreme in your state. The union won. Get it or resign, because you're causing your citizens to be killed by the truckloads. 3 of them, 2 of them already. One of them was shot the other day. So the gram factors are severity of the crime. Now, I know that's not a serious crime being in the road, but he's confronting police. Immediate threat to officers. So somebody yelled gun, and they believed, the officer, I believe, thought on the scene in his favor that the person had a gun. Now, they have a screenshot of the gun being taken away before the shots were fired. That's a screenshot, and you can hear all these commentators saying, well, the officer knew that the gun was taken away. He was unarmed at the time. How do you know that that officer saw that? You don't know that. That's what somebody screenshotted on the video. That doesn't mean the officer saw that. The officer most likely heard them say gun and knew his hands were not secured, and they had already fought him. He had already been out in the road, and we don't know what had happened before that. And so he took measures to defend himself. Not exhaustive. Courts can consider other circumstances. So these gram factors, severity of the crime, that all these other civil rights attorneys want to tell you. Severity of the crime, they say it wasn't severe crime. Immediate threat to officers. Well, he wasn't a threat to officers. He had a camera. and active resistance or flight. Now they say he wasn't actively resisting. I say different. He wasn't complying. He wasn't holding his hands up. He wasn't. He was passively resisting and actively resisting by not letting them take custody of him. And he was an instigator. And also what these other civil rights attorneys don't tell you about the Graham factors is those factors are not exhaustive, meaning they want to say severity of the crime, immediate threat to officers, and active resistance. Okay, that's fine, those three factors. There are other factors also that a court can consider, not just those three. Courts can consider other circumstances too. And one of the main circumstances that these other commentators, these other officers, these, and some of them officers tell them what went wrong according to what channel they're on. CNN's got some detective on there saying, I served for years and I think you did this wrong or that, and painting a picture the wrong way. But they fail to say in these exclusive factors, courts can consider other circumstances other than those three. And you think that there might be some other circumstances in Minnesota? I mean, it's not just like your regular cop on a traffic stop, and people get killed on traffic stops by the truckloads too. This is a circumstance in Minnesota created by rogue people in authority that think they're Confederate Army, that think they can secede from the United States, that think that they can, and they want to, have said it publicly, get rid of ICE in there and succeed from the United States of America. It's not going to happen. They got every right to be there. They're going to be there. What's going to happen is you're going to get more people killed. So the other circumstances going on in Minnesota, as said by ICE, and has been in the media that all these people aren't considering, is the fact that the local law enforcement, state and city law enforcement are not helping the ICE agency, not providing for public safety in that area, not even specifically hands-on with ICE, but not providing for law and order in the area that ICE is at. So they're outnumbered in a lot of instances, and it's a very violent circumstance created because of the lawlessness initiated by the governor and the mayor of Minnesota by telling their officers to stand down, let it go down, and you see what's going down. And then after they're letting all that violence go down, they're standing back and pointing fingers at ICE. Get your officers in there and let them provide for safety for the public and tell them to abide by the law, take them out of the street, let ICE do their job, or you're going to get more people killed and you can point fingers all day long. And I literally believe they want people to get killed because it's propaganda. Somebody died and pointed ICE when you're the one that's sending these people out in the street. I mean, it's very clear to me. Very clear to me what they're doing. ICE, I wonder if ICE arrested that man that they were trying to go after. If they were able to do that, take this man off the road. Now, what was that man's objective that went out in the road and pointing the camera at ICE, initiating contact with them, having a gun on him with 2 loaded magazines? Now, who knows? He may have wanted to shoot a bunch of them. We don't know. That is a very good possibility from his actions. That's what the ICE agents and the people from the federal government and their side have said. I don't know. That may have been a possibility. I know that he put himself in a circumstance that got him killed, and I believe the ICE agents were defending themselves. They may have made a mistake, but it's a justified, reasonable mistake, and it's called paid for. And the Minnesota governor and the Minnesota mayor are inciting this by not allowing the other circumstances that's in the Graham factor for law and order to be on their streets, pretty much inciting this violence against them. And there's already been one person killed that people say was a good person, other than this wild ideal that they are the Confederate Army. You know, it is really blocking the road. It is really horrific and sad what these people are doing, because they don't listen to Charles Van Morgan Unbridled News. I will tell you, any encounter with law enforcement, unless it's a friendly encounter, they say, hey, how you doing? You wave back, is a very dangerous and can be life-threatening. Take it seriously. It's not a joke to deal with police. If you think it is, you want to run out in the middle of the street, confront them with your camera and initiate contact with them, I wouldn't. You see a police incident going on, I would go the other way. You say that's coward? No, it's not. It's called staying alive. Let them do what they want to do. If you don't agree with it, then you want to film from a far distance away. If they tell you to stop, I would stop. A lot of these people in these audits even are initiating contact with police. You know, they could get themselves killed. I personally wouldn't do that. Now, I'm not saying don't do these First Amendment freedom of speech audits. I'm all for them. I'm just saying, when you aggressively do things, confront police, mistakes are made, you're risking your life for doing that. I'd be very careful how I did that. And some of them are very bold and very blatant about what they do. They're risking their life, what they're doing, and they may end up shot and killed. And we'll go over some of the statistics. So what a lot of these people aren't telling you is the other gram factors. There's those factors, those three factors are not exclusive. Courts can consider other factors. There's a big, huge other factor in Minnesota. It is the fact that the protest in Minnesota has turned violent and aggressive towards the agents, trying to run the agents out of Minnesota. That's exactly what's going on. They're trying to run the agents out of Minnesota. They have no legal, lawful right to do that. In the 1800s, that battle was fought, they lost, and they're going to lose again. If you want to protest, go right ahead. You go out there and do what you're doing. Don't ask me to feel sorry for you. I'm not. Listen to Charles Van Morgan and Bridal News. Leave them alone. I'm as pro-rights as you can get, as First Amendment as you can get, and believe in people asserting their rights. But I'm telling you, there's a time and place and manner for doing that. If you intentionally, aggressively pursue officers in the performance of their duties, even if you abide by the law, you could end up dead. So you better think, is it worth it? And 9 times out of 10, it is not. Now, I have been arrested by police before. None of it, absolutely none of that circumstance was me aggressively going after police. Every time that I'm approached by police, I don't come up to them and tell them, hey, you need to be doing this. My position is, if you want me to show my hands, I'll show my hands. You want me to do whatever you want to do. If you'll let me speak, I disagree with what you're saying. And try to record the confrontations. I do not initiate conflict with police. I try to get away from them. That's what you should do. If an incident's going on, go the other way. If you're at a protest, then protest peacefully. If a cop comes by on the protest and you're in a legal place, that's fine. You could call them out for stuff. But when you initially contact police intentionally in an aggressive manner, then you could end up dead. Don't do that. That's wrong. If you want to fight them in court, not out on the street. So let's look at some of the. It is unlawful for anyone to obstruct, hinder, or prevent the lawful execution in legal process, civil, criminal, or apprehend of another on a charge or conviction of a criminal offense. Now, this is Minnesota law, although they do not consider ICE agents in that law. But this is federal law. It is unlawful for any person to forcibly assault, resist, opposes, impede, intimidate, or interfere with any person designated in Section 114 of this title while engaged or account of the performance of the official duties. So he is trying to intimidate in the middle of the road, and he's committing a criminal offense, the suspect that was killed. It is unlawful. Okay, that's so you can't go out in the road. Here's the gun he had on him. And that was pretty stupid too. He had his right to carry a gun. He didn't have a right to carry a gun, holding a camera up, trying to infuriate officers, trying to run them out of Minnesota with that gun on him. He shouldn't have had that gun on him in the first place. If he wanted to have that gun on him, he should have been peacefully on the sidewalk. So he's doing this to himself because he didn't listen to my video. So here's what we have according to what happened in the moments before the shooting. The shooting occurred on Saturday morning near Nicole Avenue, 26th Street in South Minneapolis at about 9:05 local time in the morning. So here's a Google map of where the intersection is. And Greg Burrow, the Border Patrol commander, said agents had been carrying out a targeted immigration enforcement operation when Preddy approached agents with a 9mm semi-automatic handgun. Now, he didn't brandish it, we don't think. You didn't have any video that showed that he did. If he did, I don't know if he did or not. There's not any video that shows that. But he did approach them with one on him. So he did have a gun on him, just like they said, and went out in the street illegally jaywalking, according to their own laws. So he did approach agents with a 9mm automatic handgun. He did. So that's true. Bravo did not specify Preddy was brandishing a gun, but said agents attempted to disarm him and he violently resisted. The commander said a Border Patrol officer then fired defensive shots. Videos from the moments before the shooting show Preddy filming agents with his phone in the middle of the street, whistling and shouting can be heard from bystanders in the background. So he is intentionally confronting him. Don't do that. Don't do that. People boo-hoo, and he's a martyr. You know, I'd rather not be a martyr. And that's not right. He's obstructing the immigration laws of this country, impeding them getting a dangerous person out of the United States of America. That's wrong. He paid a price for it. And he shouldn't have done that. So Minnesota Statute 169.21 Subdivision 3A, crossing between intersections. If you cross anywhere other than a marked crosswalk or unmarked crosswalk at an intersection, you must yield to all vehicles. Now, he's standing out in the middle of the road. At Minnesota Statute 169.21 Subdivision 3A, if you're between adjacent intersections where traffic control signals are operating, you can't cross except in a marked crosswalk. So he can't cross except in a marked crosswalk. And if there are sidewalks provided and accessible, usable, this is Minnesota Statute 169.21, if there are sidewalks provided, and there was, and accessibly usable, it is unlawful to walk along upon the adjacent roadway in the street next to the sidewalk. So he's walking down the sidewalk. He's violating a Minnesota law. And what he's doing, he's not acting in a lawful manner, and he's carrying a gun with him while he's acting in a lawful manner, trying to incite conflict with law enforcement in the performance of their legal, legitimate duties, trying to get a dangerous man out of this country. Now, that's what happened. It's not pretty somebody died. I really hate that. I hate that for his family. He should have watched my show. They're not a game to be played with. You're not going to run them out of Dodge. They're not going anywhere. And that's the way they see it, and that's the way it's going to be. And they're going to take measures to defend their life, and they're allowed. They have broad leeway. They can make a mistake and kill you if the mistake is determined later. It's what they reasonably knew at the time. Do you want to risk that? I personally don't. It's not worth my life. And there's him standing in the road, and there's the Minnesota statue. So whatever you want to think, and you go with these news channels, Con News Network, and all these propagandists, and I've listened to a bunch of them. They're so stupid. They've never been out. They don't know what they're talking about. And they're trying to incite people to be angry at ICE, and they've killed 2 people in the past less than a month. You keep doing that, and there's going to be continued people killed. If you want to protest, stand on the sidewalk. If they approach you, I would try to move back and get away from them. Let them have their way. If you want to fight them, do it in court, not on the sidewalk. You've seen what happened. They've been winning the battles, and they win a lot of battles. So let's look at the TBI was requested to investigate 54 officer shootings in 2025. So this is just in the state of Tennessee. TBI investigated 54 times officers shot at people. So that's a high number. And you know how many people, you know how many officers were killed in 2025 by gunfire? 0. So they shot at 54, and I'm not sure how many of those 54 were killed, but they shot at them. And I'll look at that number, how many people, officers killed in the state of Tennessee and nationwide, and compare that to how many officers are killed, to show you that they win that battle. They win that battle. And I know being a police officer is a dangerous job. So it's more dangerous to be a confronter of police, a whole heck of a lot more dangerous. They're going to win that battle an overwhelming number of times. It's an unfair battle, and you shouldn't engage in that kind of war. For one thing, it's morally wrong, unless you're trying to defend your very life from a rogue officer's trying to kill you, and that might happen. I'm not taking that off the table. So it's not 100% every circumstance, but I'm saying that if you confront officers in a menacing manner, trying to incite violence or try to affect them wrongly, then your chances of getting killed are pretty high. Let's see how many people got on here. We'll talk about odds of going up against police. They're not very good. You're not going to win that battle. So don't do it. Let's see how many people got on here. And we've got just a few. So like, share, comment. And so have a seat here. So in 54 officers were involved in shootings in the state of Tennessee. And police disproportionately kill black people by percentage every year. Black people make up 12% of the population, but they make up, and white people make up 58%. And like in 2025, black people counted for 24% of police killings, and white people 37%. So according to, even though more white people are killed by police, the amount of, according to the population, is they're killed much more. Also, now that's just a statistic, black people kill each other a lot too. So that can be misleading. But you're more likely to be shot and killed by police per population than white people are. Although fairly, people my skin color are killed more. There's more white people killed. So police kill at least 1,201 people in 2025 and 42 people so far in 2026. So police have killed 1,200 people across the United States last year. That's a lot of people, 1,200 people. And taking the reasoning behind every one of them, I'm just telling you, there's 1,201 people dead because of police. Now they're trained to be able to do that. They know what they're doing. They know how to do it. They practice doing it, and they're very good at it. And even if when it's necessary, those 1,201, every one of them may have been necessary. I'm just saying that they know what they're doing and they know how to do it. So when you go up against, remember that. Okay, let's compare how many people were able to kill police in 2025. In 25, 111 total deaths of police officers. In 2024, 148. So there were 1,200 people killed by police in 2025 and only 111 deaths by police. So they far outnumber by over 1,000. Police were better at killing you than people were at killing them. So you're not going to win that battle. You're most likely, the odds are that you're going to get killed. 98 people killed by police were unarmed. So even 98 were unarmed. 56 were in a vehicle. So traffic stops. 56 across the country died. Knife, sharp object 224 had, and other object 81. A gun, people killed. 677 people that were killed had a gun. Undetermined 65. Half of those killed by police were reportedly armed with a gun. So about half of people were armed with a gun. Half of them had other weapons or weren't even armed. 56 people killed police. 56 people killed by police had vehicles as a weapon. So 56 times people tried to run over police with their cars. In Tennessee, population a little over 7,000. About 389 people have been killed. Average annual police killings, and so a lot of police killings. Now these are the states that have a collection data that have to report, public accessible, and even when the data is public, it's often incomplete. At least 25 states have official data collection or reporting requirements effect for police use of force in 2025. And Tennessee is one of them. So if you're in one of those states, then your state has an official data collection means that you can access and find out how many police are killing people and how many police are killed and use of force incidents by police. So Tennessee has an accessible data collection. 67% of killings by police in 2025, 760 deaths were traffic stops. So a lot of deaths occur, 760, were on traffic stops. So traffic stops are very serious situations when you're pulled over with police. Turn on your dome light. Keep your hands where they can see them. They ask you to get your license, registration, proof of insurance, which they will, and your insurance is in your glove compartment where your gun is. Tell them, my insurance is in my glove compartment. I've got a handgun in there. They might want to take the handgun out. You know, if you reach for a gun, they might make a mistake and shoot you. So be very cautious of that. And so police kill a lot of people. In Tennessee, 56 people were shot by police, and 0 were police were killed in 2025. Now we did have one deputy that was killed in Blount County in January 2025, because he was pursuing a motorcycle that wouldn't stop and he wrecked in pursuit, but that's not the person actively trying to kill the deputy. So we have a lot of police killings, and police practice every day, and they know what they're doing, and they will kill civilians. And according to what I've seen on the video, in this incident with ICE, and I'll show you some of the video, and people tell you what to think about what you see and how to think about it, and that's not accurate, because the way they're adjudicated is what they knew at the time on the scene. And we'll read some comments. What they knew at the time, not what a video shows later. So
Federal immigration officers fatally shot a man Saturday.
Be wary of that. This is Con News Network, what I call it. So give them credit. And if you're going out on the roads today in Knoxville, it is 4 degrees in Crossville, 2 in McMinnville, 2 in Cookville, 6 in Lebanon, -5 in Nashville. Monday, 6 a.m. -4 in Columbia. So here's some of the temperatures at least at 6 a.m. if you're going out.
Selling your home shouldn't take so long.
In Knoxville.
Get an all-cash offer and close in as little as
So you're watching Charles Van Morgan Show live news.
Officers fatally shot a man Saturday in Minneapolis.
And let's look at some of the video that CNN is providing. Credit to CNN. And we'll show you right here. of the incident. So we got just a few people on here. So there they are struggling with him.
He was an ICU nurse who worked at a local Veteran Affairs hospital, another controversial killing by U.S. immigration agents, and the second U.S. citizen killed this month. CNN analyzed cell phone footage from multiple angles. Taken together, they appear at odds with the Department of Homeland Security's initial claims about the lead-up to officers firing on Alex Preddy. Around 9 a.m. Central, video captures two people approaching a federal immigration officer in front of an unidentified vehicle. The sound of whistles is blaring in the background. Alex Preddy enters the frame here. He's filming an officer interacting with protesters and waving a car through. 15 seconds
So
later,
he's on the
Preddy
double yellow
yells.
lines.
In their statement, DHS said that an individual approached officers with, quote, a 9mm
That is true.
handgun.
Didn't say
This
he brandished
video
it.
seems to show officers approaching Preddy instead of the other way around. We'll see later that Preddy does appear to have had a gun in his waistband, but this video shows he didn't have a gun in his hand, only a phone. Video from this white car shows an up-close angle of a federal immigration officer pushing one protester. Then, 3 seconds later, he pushes Preddy, and then as the camera comes into focus, you see the same federal officer push a third protester with the orange backpack. Preddy raises his hand and turns away, just as the officer sprays him with a chemical irritant. You see Preddy and the other protester trying to help the person with the orange backpack. You can see here an officer pulling Preddy off of this person.
So you have the narrative of the fake news and how they're trying to spin this. And here, if you need a ride here in Knoxville, I do safe taxi. So you have the narrative of the fake news, how they're trying to paint this as a savage murder unjustified by ICE agents, which is not true. According to the Graham factors, severity of the incident, he was inciting and initiating contact with them, interfering with their job against federal law. And he did have a gun on him, although he didn't brandish it. He had it on him, which was the reason why he got killed, because they found the gun on him in a struggle where they didn't get his hands. And they're enforcing immigration law. So that's horrific that this has happened. But he's done that to himself. My video Friday was how not to be killed by police and how to avoid being killed, because it is a issue. Because frankly, there are officers who want to kill people. They enjoy doing that. There's some people that join the military because they like to kill. And they do it legally and justifiably, obey the Geneva Convention. People are different. People are weird. I know Dr. Bass used to put people at the body farm up there where they found out how long they were dead. That's not something that I would be interested in. It was for a good purpose. So there are officers who will kill you, who are not bad people. That's just what they do. Given the right circumstances, they will kill you. So you should be aware of that when you're dealing with police officers, that you don't give them a reason, because they will take it, and they have a large leeway. The Graham factors are not exclusive. Severity of the incident, and I read them out here, and whether the person's actively resisting or fleeing, and then the other not exhaustive incidences, that like no government help from the city and Minnesota. So I believe this is a completely justified shooting, and the fact that they have screenshots of the video is irrelevant. I watched one video where he's saying that the person that took the gun on him, and you can hear them yell gun, and then a person takes after the gun is taken away. And then you can see the guy having the gun running away from it. And the body language expert says that's weird that he's running away with a gun and he doesn't tell them that he doesn't have another gun. He recognizes the fact that he might have another gun. And I've had that where you take a gun off a suspect where they're not supposed to have one. And he's not supposed to have a gun when he's violating the law, when he's confronting police. He shouldn't have had that gun. He might have had a handgun carry permit. The handgun carry permit was no good for what he was doing confronting police. That eliminates the handgun carry permit. A handgun carry permit is not, you can't carry a gun in a federal building, and you can't carry a gun when you're initiating breaking the law with law enforcement. They're going to think that and have every right to think that you intend to use that against them. So he wasn't really carrying a gun lawfully. The news media doesn't tell you that. It's all slanted against the ICE agents who were trying to conduct their job, who I hope they got that man off the street they were trying to arrest. And the body language expert says the guy's running away. Why is he running away? And if he thinks the guy might have had another gun, why is he turning his back to him? And I know from experience, they've got a gun off the man that is violently confronting and initiating contact, initiating conflict with him, and he finds a gun on him, and he's getting the gun away from the man so he can't grab it and shoot them with it. So there's nothing wrong or strange. He said he finds it strange, a body language expert, that he's running away with the gun. Of course he is. And of course he's not running away backwards with it. He is trying to get that gun away from him. So all kinds of experts allegedly that have never been in any kind of law enforcement capacity, that don't have a doctor's jurisprudence, that don't have a Master of Arts in sociology, that don't know what's going on, have got all kinds of opinions, and they're putting it out here like, this is what I think happened, this is what I think happened. And I'll tell you what I think happened. Basically, what I think happened is ICE agents are in a particularly hostile environment, and they are on edge, justifiably so, in Minnesota because of the actions by the governor and the mayor of Minnesota. And if you don't think it's a hostile environment, listen to what they're saying about that. They're accusing them of killing people. They're demonizing ICE. They're demonizing federal agents, trying to promote like there's some kind of Confederate army trying to detach itself away from the United States. That war was fought. It's not going to happen. They have to obey federal law. They have to let ICE in the city to enforce federal immigration laws. That's a fact. That war was won, fought. The Union beat the Confederate. People fly these Confederate flags. Go right ahead. It's freedom of speech. You're flying a losing flag. They lost. And Minnesota is trying to act like they don't have to abide by the federal government, creating a particularly hostile situation in Minnesota. You notice you don't hear about this stuff going on in other cities and states, at least not as frequently, because it's not as a hostile environment. So this is an extremely hostile environment, extremely hostile. So that's part of the gram factors and other factors. And they're on edge. So they're being very careful because they're concerned, justifiably, that they may get killed or beat up by one of these protesters because they're initiating contact. Now, they're not passive. They're going up to them. And these are trained officers. And the battle's in their favor. They don't have to back down. They're not going to. If you confront them in that manner, you're likely to get killed. It's not a surprise to me. I warned people Friday. So this man goes out in the middle of the road, and I don't know what happened before that. They'd probably been following these ICE agents, I would think. But I know he's following them now. He's breaking the law in the middle of the road with a camera, initiating conflict, interfering with the performance, with the legal performance of their duties. Minnesota can't make laws to stop ICE from coming in there. It's not going to happen. So he's out there confronting them. He has a 9mm. I don't think it's good while he's confronting and initiating conflict, not abiding by the laws with federal officers. because he has the ability with 2 loaded magazines to fight, and he's showing that ability to fight. If he wanted to go out there and break the law, then he shouldn't have been armed, or because his being armed is what caused him to get killed. And or he should have stayed on the damn sidewalk. Now he knows he's got a gun and he's out there. Why is he doing that? He's trying to bully law enforcement. You know, I wouldn't do that. That's not smart. If you're gonna try to bully him, get you a lawyer, go sue him. 1983 in federal court. You do that on the road. They are trained. They practice. They go out to a fire range, fire shots, practice killing people all day long. Now they don't tell you that, but that's what they do. I literally had a lieutenant over, and he went on to be a major, over the firing range at the Tennessee Highway Patrol Training Academy. And he literally said, one of the first days in class, when we were in the classroom, if you can't hold a gun to somebody, he said, no, they wouldn't put this out publicly, but this is what they said. If you can't hold a gun to somebody, said, pull the trigger, you need to get out of your seat and leave, because you got to be able to do that. That's pretty much what this gentleman did. In the right circumstance, you have to be able to stop a threat that could cause death or serious bodily injury. If you can't do that, then you can't protect other people, because other people have a right to expect that you will stop somebody using whatever force is reasonably necessary. That could mean, in the circumstances, death of someone. If you can't do that, you don't need to be doing what you're doing. And people don't understand, bleeding heart liberals, that is how police are trained. Don't mess with them. Don't confront them in that manner, and unless you're willing to pay the ultimate price, and they'll probably get by with it. So they're dealing with all this in Minnesota. They're on edge. He comes out on the road, and they confront him. They're wanting him to back off, and he's still holding the camera in their face, still being confrontational. Don't do that. Back up. You know, show them your hands. Fight him in court. And he has refused to put his hands behind his back and had a gun on him. One of them's seen a gun, and they've yelled gun. And I believe he might have had another one on him. Well, they only show one. But somebody's gotten the gun, and somebody's yelled gun, and the officer's heard gun, and his hands aren't secured. So he is believing that his life is in danger because the man's hands are free, and he heard gun. And I have seen a clip of the man holding a gun. I don't know if that's deep fake or what, but I've seen a clip of a man holding a gun in his hand. But I believe the man, somebody saw the gun on him in a holster, and they've yelled gun. Somebody's got the gun away, and they've showed that he was shot after the gun was in another officer's hands, running away with it. And somebody said, well, that's weird, him running away with it. Why wouldn't he run backwards? Of course he's going to run away backwards with it. He's going to get that gun as far away from the suspect as he can, because that is a dangerous weapon that he can get away from that officer and use to kill them. Every call that an officer goes on is a confrontation or a call that there's a gun involved. At minimum, the officers, a lot of officers get killed with their own guns. So of course he's getting the gun away from him, running backwards to get that gun away from him. Of course, one of the body experts, never been in law enforcement, says it's weird that he's running backwards like he's trying to do something wrong or trying to hide something. No, he's not. He's trying to protect his life, the life of the other officers and civilians around, sees the gun and running away with it, getting away from the scene. Nothing wrong with him doing that. Perfectly legitimate. They're trying to turn around any little thing they can flip. And then they're showing the clip of the gun, and then they're saying that it was already gone when the officer fired the shot. So the officer knew that the gun was gone. How do you know that he's seen that? How do you know that he didn't think that the man had other guns on him? He had a gun, he was actively resisting, and he fired shots to protect his life. So the news media spin on all that is dangerous. Here's the message for everybody today watching this channel, Charles Van Morgan Unbridled News, is be careful around police. They will kill you. They have a right to perform their duties within reason, obviously. If they tell you to jump off a bridge, don't do that. Be very careful with police. They're life and death situations. I'm not telling you to be paranoid and just totally flip out, but what I'm saying is keep your hands on the steering wheel, turn your dome light on. If you're walking down the street, they yell for you to stop. Even if you think it's unconstitutional, stop, go along with the program. Don't do anything that could take your life from you. That's just reasonable to do. And then later on, sue them in a court of law. And don't listen to the hype. ICE agents are doing a very important job. I would ask all my supporters, call your representative, call Mr. Tim Burchett, call the governor, call your local representative and tell them that we support ICE agents and what they're doing, and we support removing illegal people from this country and safely, efficiently treating them well, and while we're deporting them across this country for the sovereignty of the United States of America. They have invaded this country. They're taking over. They're getting positions of power in the government. They're getting positions of power over birth certificate carrying, over people who are educated in the United States, over people that have been here all their life, over draft registered people, over military people. These illegal immigrants are coming in here illegally, getting power over Americans and taking over our country, invading it from within, fighting a propaganda war that's making the civilian people that aren't very well knowledged, educated, making them take their part and spread their propaganda and fight a war for them when they're taking over their own rights. And they're invading us from within. I don't buy any of that. They need to be deported. ICE is doing an excellent job. They need to keep it up. I don't speak highly of the Republicans in the state of Tennessee that often. I will say they're doing an excellent job by the policies of working with the administration, the Trump administration right now, and we're going to work with them, and they're going to deport illegal immigrants, illegal aliens, that's what I call them, from this country. And they're going to try to make Tennessee a model state to where we don't have illegal aliens in this country, using up our resources. And they're going to pass laws and let state and local authorities work with ICE agents to rid Tennessee of illegal immigrants, which is an excellent thing. So I have to say the Republican Party in that aspect is doing a wonderful thing. Now, if they go too far and don't treat immigrants fairly and decently and appropriately, then I'll have to disagree with that. But I agree with them going along with the administration that everybody in the United States, not everybody voted for, but it was voted into office by everybody in the United States of America, the policies of immigration. Now, if you don't agree with immigration enforcement, then you don't agree with the sovereign country. And there's no Democrat or Republican that's going to agree that we shouldn't have laws about coming across our borders. So call your representative, have them tell them that we are sending a message to the silent majority, the people that voted Trump into office, that we agree with ICE agents and we support them in spite of all the protests going on, that there are people out here that appreciate what they're doing, and that we want them to continue the job that they're doing to make this nation secure. And thank you, ICE agents. And also, this channel is Unbridled News. It's voters of truth enraged. And the truth is, illegal immigrants are taking over this country, taking power. And whether or not this country is going to continue has a lot to do with its sovereignty, whether or not we keep these illegal people out and only let legal people in. If we can't do that, we have a democracy now, but can we keep it? And a lot of these illegal aliens are even voting. So they say they're not, but they are. How they're voting is they're moving over here illegally. They shouldn't be here. And then they're getting legal status by people in the government given to them when they don't deserve it. They don't have a birth certificate. And then they're getting positions of power. And then they're getting elected into government office. So they are going to take over our country from the inside out, which is exactly what they're doing. And we need our immigration laws enforced. It's vitally important. It's very serious in order to be able to continue to fly our American flag, and in order for us to be we the people, and not we, the Mexicans, Mexico, and Mexican people are good people. I love Mexican people. But we, Mexico, or we, another country, is going to put their flag down in the United States of America. It needs to be a sovereign country. So call if you need a ride here in Knoxville. Roads are slick. Was about 20 degrees at 6 in the morning. Probably warmed up a little bit. We'll probably try to have a show tomorrow morning. I appreciate y'all watching. Be careful with police. Sue them in court, not on the street, and support the channel. Thank y'all for watching. I appreciate your time. As I always try to say in closing, God loves you and I do too.